Invitation. It is a surreal opportunity for me, not one that I ever anticipated having, and it's such an honor to me that you all have taken the time to be here. It is a consequential moment in our history, in the history of some of our allies today, and it's a great pleasure to be with you all at the world's great financial center. That is all true, everything that was just said, alongside business owners and job creators. We would be remiss if we did not make two notes before I begin some prepared remarks. First, we all just witnessed another brazen attack by Iran against Israel and an apparent coordinated terrorist attack in Jaffa. We're praying for the safety of the Israeli families, of course, and the House GOP leadership is urging the Biden-Harris administration to deliver a strong message to the Iranian regime that is, this unjustified violence and terror has to end. We also recognize that it's hypocritical for the administration to express support for Israel's defense while continuing to appease the Iranian regime with billions, or hundreds of billions of dollars actually, in sanctions relief. It's long past time for the administration to fully enforce the Iran sanctions on the books and reimpose the UN sanctions lest they expire. Right now, American leadership has never been more important, and we need a maximum pressure campaign on Iran and its terror proxies. The world must know that the United States will continue to stand firmly with Israel as it fights for its very survival. And President Biden needs to make clear that there will be decisive economic and potential military ramifications for these actions. Second, as we also sit here today, our hearts and our prayers are with all the people who've been impacted by Hurricane Helene. My home state of Louisiana is no stranger to hurricanes. We're experts at disaster recovery, but one of this magnitude leaves a real mark. We've seen how floodwaters can devastate communities, and in Helene's aftermath, entire streets and whole cities have been ripped apart by storm surge. In Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, the Carolinas, and beyond, you've got hundreds of roads that remain closed even right now. You have hundreds of thousands of homes and businesses that are without power. And more than 120 families are mourning the loss of their loved ones who were killed by this devastating storm. I've received updates on the latest recovery and rescue efforts, and we'll be working with our members, with FEMA, with state and local emergency management to help address the many needs that are out there. And this is going to go on for some time. We certainly are grateful for all the first responders who are actively working under very difficult conditions. Congress has previously provided FEMA with the funds it needs to respond, so we will make sure that those resources are appropriately allocated. Amid the uncertainty and confusion that these tragedies bring, one thing is certain. In the aftermath of disasters like this, we really do see the best of America. We see communities come together. We see friends and neighbors help one another. Businesses that are operating find a way to provide food and shelter. Recovery is going to take everybody working together, but I'm confident that we will rebuild, we will forge ahead, because that's what we do in America. And few people understand that spirit as well as New Yorkers, and we all know that. Indeed, this city has always represented to the world our rugged, uniquely American spirit. The skyscrapers in the Empire State Building display our engineering prowess. Wall Street and the port symbolize our dominance in trade and commerce. The spot not far from here where our Declaration of Independence was first read publicly on July 9th by George Washington reminds the world of our national creed. And the Statue of Liberty symbolizes the enduring promise of America as the land of opportunity and the leader of the free world. We've been traveling all around the country. I've been traveling nonstop. That's the job of the modern speaker. The last 11 months we've been on the road. I've done campaign events so far in 211 cities across 39 states. We have many more. We'll be traveling every day. We'll go to 20 states this month alone before the election. What I've been seeing from coast to coast has been at once inspiring and also, to be honest, very just infuriating. Our incredible people are hanging on right now in spite of so many unprecedented challenges, but many can't afford to do it much longer. 4 years of open borders and what I regard to be reckless foreign policy, rising crime, the skyrocketing cost of living have taken a real toll on the spirit of the American people. I've visited with fourth and fifth generation family businesses that are on the verge of collapse after 4 years of high inflation and high taxes and hyper-regulation. I've met with energy producers whose vital projects have been stalled by oppressive regulations. I've talked with moms and dads who are having to donate plasma and set up crowdfunding pages just to keep from losing their homes. This is a real statistic. GoFundMe, you all know the website, recently announced that web pages created to avoid car repossessions and home evictions are up 40% since last year. Families are watching their grocery bills double and their credit card debt rise because the cost of everyday goods has become unaffordable. Many of them are having to pick up second and third jobs because wages are falling compared to inflation, meaning they're working more hours for less money. And this has led our young people to begin to sour on the American dream. Meanwhile, the very people behind these taxes and regulations are signaling that they intend to double down on those failed policies. They're proposing centralized price controls and taxes on unrealized gains and plans for the government to become more involved in areas like the housing industry, which, just like college tuition and healthcare, will only cause prices to rise further. Their plans would punish farmers and ranchers and manufacturers with $5 trillion in additional taxes. And they would raise household taxes by $300 per month for each paycheck for the average family of 5 starting in 2026. If their plan is enacted, the average family in my district in Northwest Louisiana would be burdened with approximately $2,800 in new taxes every year. Of course, we know the playbook for economic prosperity because we put it into action 8 years ago. I came to Congress the same year that Donald Trump came to the White House, and we went right to work implementing the policies that we always said that we supported. We cut regulations, we reduced taxes, we produced energy here at home. We got the government out of the way, and we allowed the free market to thrive again. And as a result, we saw poverty rates plummet, we saw incomes rise, and the stock markets soar. Because we simplified the tax code and we let Americans keep more of their own money, nearly 7 million people were no longer dependent on food stamps. Middle-class family income rose by nearly $6,000, and incomes rose in every single metro area in the United States for the first time in nearly 3 decades. We made America an attractive place to do business, and companies brought more than $1.7 trillion in capital back to within our borders. We stood up to countries that were exploiting one-side trade deals, and we added 510,000 manufacturing jobs for our middle-class workers. We expanded apprenticeships to more than 850,000 workers. We had the lowest unemployment rate within a half century, with record low rates for African Americans, Hispanic Americans, and those without a high school diploma. In brief summary, we applied the principles of President Reagan, the first sitting president to speak here, by the way, who reminded us that government isn't the solution to the problem, government is the problem. And I certainly believe that. The evidence is clear that we know what it takes to have a vibrant American economy. And we have to defeat at the ballot box politicians who are actively trying to do the opposite, to try to destroy it. The survival of the American dream depends upon our victory. Republicans have a plan to stop the bleeding of inflation, to remove the parasite of socialism, and to cut out the cancer of overregulation that's making our economy so sick. When Republicans retake the White House and the Senate and grow our House majority, which I'm convinced is going to happen 34 days from now, we will introduce and pass a comprehensive economic agenda based on the successful plan we implemented under President Trump's first administration that will restore the American economy to full health and reinvigorate our can-do spirit. 5 quick elements that I just want to summarize for you of what we intend to do. First, we'll promote investment and opportunity, and we'll do it by extending and building upon the Trump's tax cuts. In 2017, we reduced the IRS's invasion into everyday lives of Americans, and we let them keep more of their hard-earned money. Businesses, large and small, began new projects, opened new centers, hired new workers, and provided better wages. We will reinstitute a broad-based tax policy that unleashes the American entrepreneurial spirit and encourages research, development, and manufacturing. We want to ensure the U.S. remains the preeminent location for investment in innovation and technology. We do this by restoring immediate expensing for research and development costs, ensuring a strong FDII incentive to encourage U.S. ownership in intellectual property, and restoring the 100% expensing provision. And as we support job creation and spur economic growth, we will reinstate the double guaranteed deduction and a strong child tax credit. But unlike other proposals, we will ensure that our tax policy respects the dignity of work, and it doesn't pay people more for staying out of the workforce. Number two, we'll use our economic weight to prioritize this nation. Gone are the days of allowing China to steal our jobs and technology and exploit our trade deals and hollow out our manufacturing sector. It's obviously not in our national interest to rely on communists for our energy, critical minerals, and pharmaceuticals. And we know it's not in our national interest to support the economy of our largest geopolitical adversary. Last month, the House passed more than 24 bills to confront China's exploitation of trade deals and nefarious economic practices. The Biosecure Act, as an example, especially, was a bipartisan victory that protected Americans' health care data and halted federal contracts to biotech companies operated by our adversaries. Bipartisan work will continue as we take on Chinese companies that use forced labor and dodge tariffs through the de minimis exception. Congress also continues to have productive conversations about the best way to prevent American funds from flowing into firms that support the Chinese military. More and more people now understand that we support the Chinese economy at our own peril. So we're looking for a bipartisan solution to restrict, for example, outbound investment before the end of this year in the lame duck session of Congress. We also want to work with the business community to prepare for the very real threat of an attempted takeover of Taiwan. We're dealing with a paranoid leader in Beijing who has made his aims clear. So it's in everyone's interest to ensure our companies are already taking steps to prepare for such an event, even as we pray that it doesn't happen. There's much more we could say about the threat of China, of course, but House Republicans also plan to prioritize our nation by using the tax code to secure our border and fight the drug cartels. After 4 years of open borders and a record number of illegal crossings, we now have an absolute catastrophe across the country, including right here in New York, as you all know. And this catastrophe has resulted in enormous human suffering and financial cost. You may have seen how Jay Powell even said that the mass migration issue is causing unemployment to rise, and that seems quite obvious. That's why it's our intention to also use the tax code to deter illegal immigration and eliminate existing policies and loopholes that currently reward illegal aliens. Third, under our plan, we will revive and empower our energy sector. We know that a prosperous, cutting-edge America that's ready to embrace the opportunity of artificial intelligence requires an all-of-the-above energy policy. But American companies and families have been burdened by Green New Deal regulations, unrealistic EV mandates, pauses on LNG permitting and exporting, reduced oil refining capacity, and a litany of prohibitively expensive emission standards. These mandates, which have ignored the untapped resources right here within our own soil, and ignored the science supporting natural gas, by the way, have made fueling up at the gas station and cooling or heating our homes astronomically more expensive. So under our plan, we will roll back the Green New Deal regulations and reestablish American energy dominance. Fourth, we'll reform our education system by maximizing school choice for parents and holding elite universities responsible for de-education and out-of-control cost. At the heart of our American pioneering spirit is the chance to learn so every citizen can help carry on our grand experiment in self-governance. We've seen how years of counterproductive government programs, exploding administrator payrolls, and loan cancellations have only made it more expensive to get a degree. We've also seen how radical ideologies and insurgent anti-Semitism have overtaken our once great university campuses. We have professors who are indoctrinating our students rather than educating them, and they're making them ill-prepared for the workforce. At the K through 12 level, parents are frustrated with administrators who keep them in the dark about curriculum and with politicians who only give them one schooling option. We know that school choice already exists, as millions of Americans who have the means are blessed and able to send their children to the schools that best meet their needs. But Republicans want to expand that choice so that every American has that opportunity. Every American can ensure, their parents can ensure, that they have the resources and the options so their children can learn and grow and become citizens who are ready to continue on our great American experiment. Finally, it's our intention, with a new Senate Republican majority and a Republican president, a Republican House, to pursue a policy of fiscal responsibility. Under President Biden, we crossed the dangerous threshold of $35 trillion in national debt. As of this morning, it's 35.3 and counting. It goes up every second. With interest on the debt now overtaking our defense spending, we're in an unsustainable and frankly immoral position as a nation. Economic historian Niall Ferguson has famously noted that an empire reaches a point of dangerous volatility when its debt servicing payments exceed its defense budget. It happened with the French Empire, the Ottoman Empire, and as of this year, it's happening right here in America. And it's no surprise that many secretaries of defense and national security advisors have called the growing federal debt the greatest national security threat that we face as a nation. Nor is it a surprise that our small businesses are telling us that the ever-increasing debt is the greatest long-term threat to their own growth. Under President Trump and a united Republican Congress, we will grow the economic base and stop mortgaging our children's future to fund today's big government bureaucracies. We will cut the wasteful Green New Deal spending and Democrats' so-called Inflation Reduction Act that is costing twice as much as it was advertised and is sending our taxpayer dollars to China. Meanwhile, we're going to root out waste, fraud, and abuse and improper $1 trillion payments within the federal government, which have grown to the highest levels ever in the last 4 years. And we're going to reduce the size of the federal workforce and root out a long list of non-essential jobs throughout the federal bureaucracy. Our government is going to be a responsible government with a reduced scope and reduced spending. A government that's responsible enough to know that it can't and should not do everything. That's because a government that promises to solve every problem will cause every problem. And that's a road to serfdom, as history teaches. And it will create a people who are dependent on the government and thus have that malnourished pioneering spirit. One final note on this notion of responsibility that has to do with what happened in the Congress last week. As you all saw, we passed a continuing resolution to fund the government through December 20th. My preference would have been to have passed all our appropriations bills before the end of the fiscal year so that a CR would not be needed. We worked really hard to break the Christmas omnibus fever that has taken over Washington for the last couple of decades. Sadly, our partners in the Senate, and this is the truth, they didn't even attempt to pass a single appropriations bill on the floor this fiscal year. When we have partners who refuse to participate in the process, we are forced in the House and have no choice but to turn to a CR. I know that for businesses and markets, CRs cause needless uncertainty and instability. It's not a responsible process, and it's one we all want to move away from. Moving forward, we must get the appropriations process back to regular order. We must be responsible stewards of your tax dollars, and it's my plan to do just that in a united Republican government. So that's our plan in a brief summary. Promote investment and opportunity. Prioritize this nation. That's the America First principle. Reform education. Reinvigorate the energy sector. And spend responsibly. After 4 years of decline, we're ready to lead the world once again, and we have a plan to do so. I think we're on a path to get there in November. It's not going to be easy, though. It takes courage to press against the headwinds of big government. Just like it's hard to start a business or convince investors to believe in a new venture, it's hard to roll back the entrenched bureaucracy and face the system that has produced the decline. It's a difficult task, but it's a task that can be achieved. We are the nation that has always overcome every challenge placed in our path. When we're told that something is impossible, it is the American people who have always found a way. And that's why I have every confidence we're ready to turn this corner, overcome our present circumstances, and forge ahead to usher in an era of prosperity for every American family. Thank you again for your valuable time, your attention this afternoon. It means so much to us. God bless you.